Well, good afternoon, and thank you for coming along to this meeting of Cheltenham Borough Council. And before I forget, may I take this opportunity of wishing everybody here a very, very happy Christmas and a healthy New Year. So welcome to all participants of this meeting of the full Council. The meeting is being live streamed to the Council's YouTube channel. Welcome to any members of the public who are watching the meeting remotely. The recording of the meeting will remain online for 4 years. If you are present and making a representation to the meeting, you are consenting to this and to the use of the recordings for broadcasting and training purposes. Please be aware that CCTV and audio recording is now in operation, and the footage and recordings will be held by the Council for 5 months. We are not expecting a fire alarm test, so if the alarm does sound, you should make your way to the nearest fire exit immediately. So the first item then is apologies. We have apologies from Councillors Atherstone, Clark, Harvey, Holliday, Lynch, Mutton, Orme, Pemberton, Sankey, Smith and Steinhardt. And Councillor Beale may be late. Any others? No? Okay, thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Anyone have any declarations of interest to Councillor Willingham?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to say, like a number of us, I'm a county councillor, so in relation to the motion that we have at the end.
Just on that, should all the county councillors declare that interest then? So do any other county councillors wish to declare that as well? Myself and Councillor Williams. That's it. Okay, thank you very much. We then move on to item 3 then, minutes of the last meeting. Members happy they are correct record? Councillor, did you want to comment? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's a small point. The notice of the motion that was discussed, Cheltenham and the public realm, it was seconded by myself and not Councillor Pinniger, as it's down on the record.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. We'll get that noted. Apart from that, anybody? So those in favour then, please show. Tappy, are you voting? Oh, sorry. So those abstaining and anybody against? So that is carried. Thank you all very much. Communications by the Mayor. As you know, I do like to just comment on 1 or 2 of the events that I've been to. We haven't got long enough for me to talk you through all the carol services and all the Christmas light switch-ons, of which there have been numerous. I didn't realise how many churches we had in our town, but we do have quite a few. But it's been an absolute joy, as you can imagine, going to these services and also to many of the care homes in the town and speaking to many of the elderly residents there. And I was rather taken aback at one of the care homes, Thurleston Care Home, where I was introduced, and I'd previously met one of the residents, a guy called Joe, and he was able to tell me that he'd been a councillor for 41 years in East Hertfordshire and been mayor 3 times. So he firmly put me in my place. I went to a lovely event, actually, at the Wilson, which was the Kids Art Club celebration. And this is a project which got funding through the Cheltenham Awards. I've forgotten the name of them now. Cheltenham Pride, is it? Yep. And basically, they were working with children in St Paul's and St Peter's and the malls to get them encouraged to do art and providing free materials and so on. And they all came along to the Wilson, and all their artwork was presented on, and it was an absolute joy for these children to have their art on display like that. And I really do hope that when they apply for their funding again next year, they will get our support, because it was a lovely project. And we had a very enlightening event here, actually, which Councillor Atherstone ably chaired, in our own words, which was the views of young women in Cheltenham. And essentially, it was a number of female students from Pittville. about 14 or 15 of them. And they came and they talked to us about their concerns as young women in our town. And it was a really powerful experience. And I think it just goes to show to me the importance of us engaging with all of our communities in our town, whatever diversity, age, etc. And I hope as a result of that meeting, a lot of things will be taken back and both with the police and with ourselves in terms of CCTV, lighting, etc. So the power of engagement is as always, is so important. And one of my charities is CCP, Caring for Communities and People. And we all know that every year they have their Hamper Scamper scheme, where they collect from donors and business lots and lots of gifts of food and presents for children who would otherwise not get presents at Christmas. And what was so sad about this is that the demand for this has gone up by 34% from last year. So that many more children and that many more families are really, really struggling, as we know at the moment. So what they do and the smiles they will bring to families and children at Christmas is brilliant. And without our charities in our town, we wouldn't be the town that we are. And on that note, special mention to David Bath, who many of you would know does so much in our town, raising money for charities. He did the selection box appeal, and they got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of boxes of chocolates. And actually, Cheltenham Borough Council staff donated a lot towards that appeal as well, and was able to go with him to Riding for the Disabled, where they presented a lot of those boxes. So David Bath, really fantastic local volunteer. And finally, I went to visit the Royal Naval Parade of Cheltenham Sea Cadets. And first time I'd ever been in the building, and it was fabulous, and all the young people there, with the huge loss we've seen of youth clubs across our county. It's great that these organisations are around to give people the opportunity to learn and make new friends. And there they were, tying knots and doing all sorts of things. They go out power boating, they go rowing, they go sailing. It's a fantastic opportunity, all run by volunteers essentially. So that was a lovely experience. So that's it from me. We now move on to communications by the leader of the council. So Rowena, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Like the Mayor, I've had the privilege to represent Cheltenham across many, many different places, meeting many different people, but nationally and internationally. So as we come to the end of another year, I thought it would be good to actually reflect on all that this council has achieved. For a starter, we welcomed our housing colleagues back into the CBC fold from the 1st of July this year. And I would like to place on record our thanks, and I'm sure you'd all share those thanks with me, to all those tenants and leaseholders who have and are taking part in our housing committee and tenant and leaseholder panels, as their time and their voices is vital in driving improvement services forward. We also self-referred ourselves to the housing regulator. Ultimately, the regulator did not provide a formal judgment and was pleased with the actions being taken thus far. So a huge thanks to all those involved in that process and the work that will continue into 2025. We had elections in May this year, swiftly followed by a general election. And then now I can't move my page. That's really helpful, isn't it? Doesn't want to move, so I can't remember for a minute. Go on, thanks, Bev. Yeah. What I did? Oh, I know what I've done. No, I blew it up. Just reduce it. I blew it up so I could read it. Sorry about that, folks. We had all our elections in May 24, general election, and a massive thanks to all of that all-round team effort led by our elections team. It is a huge amount of work, and to have to do 2 in 1 year is phenomenal. We formally opened the Minster Exchange. We submitted planning applications for Golden Valley, and we delivered over £2 million in savings. Although I'm sure our finance team will tell us that we can't just stop there. We won accolades for keeping people safe during race week, our nighttime economy, and our amazing parks and gardens. officers dealt with a fire at the Regent Arcade. And after 30 years of talking about it, we've actually put the municipal offices up for sale, with applications now closed. The airport is also on the market, but to remain as an airport with much needed investment. Neither of those jobs of going to market for both municipal offices and for the airport is something that happens overnight. It only happens with a huge amount of effort. And we've had a really good response to that, and actually some very good compliments on what our data sources and fields that they can all see are. We successfully received £20 million from this government to support another step on our journey to delivering the Innovation Centre. There are, of course, challenges ahead. The change in the National Planning Policy Framework announced last week, which will see increased numbers for us, making working with our strategic local partners even more important. And there are many other changes which we will need to digest. Today's white paper announcement that all remaining two-tier councils will be invited to submit reorganisation proposals, along with unitaries looking at themselves again in terms of their size, and that's all going to be at the same time. I do very much hope that when we have had time to digest the paper as districts and the county council, we will be able to reach a consensus that is best for our county, which has so much to offer. The timelines government has given is that will happen within this parliamentary term. Our festive ice rink has been a huge hit again, with its new look Christmas trees and lights, along with the special relaxed glide sessions that I know my grandchildren truly enjoyed. Working again with the Holiday Activities Fund to offer free skating to local residents who meet that eligibility criteria. This year you can even have a children's party on the ice. Sales are up on last year, and this is thanks to the excellent marketing and the good reputation. And I should place on record, really, our thanks to Lidl's for being the primary sponsor of that event. Last year, the rink welcomed 30,000 skaters who spent an estimated 1.6 million in local businesses, 860,000 of which wouldn't have been spent without the ice rink. And we will be carrying out that same analysis this year to see how we've improved on that. And don't forget, if you're short of a Christmas present or two, you can always buy ice rink vouchers online. I'd like to say congratulations to Cheltenham Town women's team, who have reached the 4th round of the Women's FA Cup for the first time in their history, which means they are now in the last 32. They did it by beating Norwich City in the 3rd round and will now play Wolverhampton Wanderers in the 4th round for a place in the last 16 on Sunday, January the 12th. I'd say everybody would share with me to say well done to all of those involved. Lastly, I'm sure you will all support me in saying thank you to all our operational teams who across Christmas and the New Year will be on call to support residents, including our housing teams, the environmental health, cleansing teams, right through to the emergency planning. And it also is there, of course, to support our businesses. Finally, my best wishes to you all, however you choose to spend this holiday season. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Rowena. I've got to mention, we will have mince pies and tea at the end of the meeting, unless the meeting goes on indefinitely, in which case we'll have a break and have them then. That's entirely up to you, of course. Okay, so we now move on to public questions, and it's great to see so many because this is all part of local government accountability, and I think it's great that we as a council endorse this and invite public questions. So as the questioners should know, they've had their answers, their written answers, and they have a right to ask a supplementary question. Can I just stress to the questioners who are here today that can you make sure it is a supplementary question and not a supplementary statement? Okay, so the first questioner who is in attendance is Tim Harmon. Tim, you've had your written answer to question 5. Would you like to have a supplementary?
Good afternoon. And first of all, can I wish all members and officers the compliments of the season? Can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay, good. Can you hear me? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, I'll try to get near the microphone. Can I thank the Cabinet member for the replies to both of my questions, which I accept as written. With regard to my first question, question number 6, would he agree with me that it's a reasonable supposition on behalf of residents that have spoken to me and others that the closure of the Swindon Road site must logically put Bring sites under greater pressure? As part of the review he's undertaking, would he look at that very seriously? And would he also consider potentially expanding the facilities with possibly additional skips or the possibility of recycling additional things which you can't currently do at the Bring sites?
Thank you, Tim. Well, absolutely. They are going to be under additional pressure, and that's part of the reason we're doing this prolonged closure, to trial it out and see how much more resource we have to divert into emptying them. We're already doing that as part of this. We're going to be putting more people going out and emptying those sites more frequently. We're also looking to try and get another site in as well, to try and alleviate the pressure across the town. And if we can put in more things, if there's suitable space to do it, I'm always open to trying to do that. We have obviously extra bins at the household recycling centre that could be used elsewhere during this prolonged closure, and that's always worth looking at. Thank you.
Thank you. And to my second question, which I think is number 7, I understand you're doing a review. You can't commit totally. The last sentence in your reply might raise a few questions about whether you are fully committed to retaining Bring sites. Whatever comes out of the review, would you agree to have a public consultation exercise about the future of the Bring sites if they are in jeopardy, given that so far I think there's been no consultation about the closure of the Swindon Road site?
In relation to the Swindon Road, the HRC, obviously we're going out to our budget consultation soon, which any member of the public can get involved in, which will include the HRC in that, and then we'll have our resident survey next year, as well as having overview and scrutiny looking at it. But in terms of the Bring sites, I have no plans to close any of our Bring sites. So if that ever comes up, obviously we'll have to have an open discussion about that, but I have no intention to close them. And as you say, they're going to be under increased pressure with the prolonged closure of the HRC. So we need to make sure that they are retained and used as much as possible.
Thank you. Next, Chris Mason. Chris, do you have supplementaries? I'm assuming you do. So your question is to Councillor Alicia Lewis. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank Councillor Lewis for her questions. I do have a couple of supplementaries. The first one relating to car parking. Would you not agree that our town centres are struggling, our retailers are struggling? A small gesture of allowing free car parking after 3 o'clock, would she agree or not agree that they would see that as a reasonable step?
I thank Chris for coming along with his questions. His questions are always excellent and very well researched. It's definitely something I'm happy to look into as a review, but certainly something that's not on the pipeline at the moment. It's possibly the best way to describe it.
Thank you very much. And on the second question, as the installation of the charging points at Bath Road car park are overdue, and given the constant change on this process, can you inform me or let me know, are the traders in the Bath Road, are they being kept up to date with the situations?
Yes, the traders are being kept up to date, and it is simply a matter of National Grid holding things up progressively. It's something that many councillors will be familiar with, and as soon as that can be made to move, it will certainly be made to move, because we know how difficult it is having missing car parking spaces. And once the scheme's finished, I think there'll be an increasing asset, particularly for those small traders in the area who'll be able to take advantage of people parking their cars to go out for errands during the day and hopefully visit those businesses within easy walking distance. So we have optimism, and they are being kept up to date.
Thank you, Chris. Emma, over to you.
Is that better? Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and it's strange to be back here. but nice. Thank you to the Cabinet member for his response. See over there. These staff turnovers are concerning, particularly given the significant increase in development we are now seeing for both new sites and developments in our town and private extensions, to be increased further following the announcement of the local government. So we're going to put incredible pressure on our planning department. And as per my original question, I'm particularly concerned about enforcement, and I know there used to be 2 and now just 1 enforcement officer. What actions are the Cabinet taking to ensure longer-term stability in this vital department? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Emma, for your question. I'm going to stand up because I noticed when the leader was talking earlier on, you could just see the top of my head in the bottom of the screen, and it looks a bit like an egg. So anyway, just to deal with that enforcement, I can give you some good news. We do have 2 people in enforcement at the moment, and hopefully that may long continue. I do take your point about lots and lots of new development going on in the town, and the need to make sure that we maintain a team that can deal with the applications in a timely manner. And we will be doing everything we can to make sure that happens. Cheltenham's not alone with the challenges we've had with recruiting and retaining members of staff. There's just not enough planners on the planet. And let's hope that the new government perhaps put some schemes in place that will change that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And a supplementary to my next question, please, to the Cabinet member. Thank you for her response. My understanding from local businesses is that this refurbishment of the public conveniences in Montpellier was due to be completed in time for the Literature Festival in October. However, here again is a Cheltenham Borough Council managed project that's overdue, just like the Wilson project, overdue, MX, overdue, EV charges in the Bath Road, we've just heard, overdue, and now the public convenience is overdue. So you say it's expected to be complete in the new year. Please, could you be more specific? Will they be finished by the end of January?
I thank Emma for her questions. They're always incredibly incisive. I miss her very much on the opposition bench. Possibly my level of sleep doesn't, but I certainly miss Emma being here. I think this is a regrettable case of bad weather and contractor-related issues that were fully outside of the control of Cheltenham Borough Council, and that's always regrettable. But one thing that we've been really clear on as a council is that the taxpayer of Cheltenham will not be footing the bill for those delays, and that the developer will be swallowing the costs, which I think is fully reasonable. If you can't deliver a project on time, then you certainly won't be paying extra for the privilege. One thing that I know we're really keen to manage when it comes to public expectation is specific dates for the launch of projects. I'm very enthusiastic to see it done as early in the new year as is feasible, but I cannot commit to a January date.
Thank you, Emma. Mr. Rich Newman. Rich, would you like to come forward? And you have a supplementary on both your questions? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so if you'd like to fire away with your first question, which is to Councillor Isaac Telford.
Hello. Right, given the uncertainty of the timescale which you referred to in the final sentence of your reply, would you agree to make a statement in the new year outlining a clear time frame?
Well, obviously, time frame in terms of finishing it, or like the process and everything, we have to go through this process. It depends on a lot of factors. Obviously, we've got the discussions with the county council to come, and then depending on how that goes, we've then got plenty of other things to be doing and to be chatting about and to be talking about with overview and scrutiny, and in the budget consultation that we have coming up and in the resident survey. So what I've said about the HRC is that we will have a decision by the middle of next year. We said June or July, and I would like to stick to that. I think that's the right thing to do, and so the public will be kept up to date throughout the process.
Thank you very much for that. And secondarily, was it not inconsiderate to have failed to inform the staff of the site closure before the day of the public announcement?
Obviously, originally that was to Rowena, but it's to do with the HRC. As with anything, we did that properly in the morning. Unions were there and involved. I think that was the right thing to do. Obviously, you didn't want anything like this to be leaked ahead of any decision, because that would be a challenge for the other employees to be wondering what was going on without any confirmation for them. And it would be a challenge for the council and for everybody else and the public to be worrying about that before anything was properly confirmed. I think it was right to have done it when we did it. It went out, they were spoken to before it was taken to the public and before it was published by the press.
Thank you, Rich. Then the final one we have is question 16, Richard Lawler. Richard, if you'd like to come forward. And your supplementary, who's Councillor Victoria Atherstone's not here. Rowena, you're taking that. Okay, far away with your question. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, councillors. Given the persistent challenges of antisocial and illegal parking near schools in Cheltenham, would the Cabinet consider appointing Councillor Graham Beale to lead a dedicated working group to address the issue?
Thank you for your question. In the absence of Councillor Atherstone, because she's not well today, and she's very disappointed not to have been here, I think there's two things. A, I'm not going to commit Cabinet to something without a Cabinet collective decision on that. And B, most of your question actually is not within our control. Most of what your request is all sits with the County Council. So I think, I mean, and which is where it probably rightly belongs, is to speak to your relevant county councillor and ask them to take it up on your behalf as well with the county council. You know, I know over the years that you know, this very point about outside schools in particular has been talked about, and many people have tried to do things about it. We have managed some school streets across the town, but only a very limited amount. So I think ask your county councillor, and we'll come back to you once we've had a chat as Cabinet.
Just on that. Just on that point, at the County Council, you have the same opportunity as you do here to ask public questions. And if you attend the meeting at County Council, then you then have a chance to do the supplementary as well. So you don't need to go through your County Councillor. You can just submit your own public question to the County Council. The Cabinet member will give you a written response, and then you will have an opportunity to follow that. But thank you very much. Okay, so we have no member questions today. So now we move on to item 9, which is recommendations of the Independent Remuneration Panel. And I invite Graham Russell to address us, and then you'll have the opportunity to ask questions, and then we'll move to a debate. So. Yeah, welcome, Graham. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your nice welcome over there, informing me that you'd allocated an hour for this item. I am the chairman of the independent panel, an independent panel that receives evidence and makes recommendations to you on all matters relevant to your scheme of allowances. I'm not going to speak at length. You have the report. We are recommending, first of all, that members' allowances should continue to be indexed against the pay award to staff, and that is our first recommendation. We see no reason to depart from that, and the evidence we have from councillors suggests that that is the right and proper course for indexing members' allowances. The second major issue that we discussed at the request of the council was to consider whether or not there should be a special responsibility allowance awarded to the chair and the vice chair of the Cabinet Housing Committee, which is part of your new governance structure for housing. We came firmly to the conclusion, based on the evidence, based on the very helpful role description that the council has provided, that there was indeed a significant responsibility falling on the members that are going to lead that process. And we also felt at this stage, based on the evidence, that the role of the chair and vice chair were very much aligned to the role of the overview and scrutiny chair and vice chair. And so our recommendation, also to allow some consistency in the scheme of allowances, is that those allowances be set as 4463 for the chair and 1517 for the vice chair, equal to those of the chair and vice chair of scrutiny. However, we do recognise that this is a new governance structure, and it would be right and consistent with our practice in the past for us to offer you the opportunity to allow us to review the whole situation after 12 months of operational experience. And if we've got it wrong, we will put it right by making an alternative recommendation to you in the light of that operational experience. But we think, Mr. Mayor, that the recommendations we're offering you today are, in our view, the right course of action at this time. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Graham. Do members have any questions? Okay, we can go into debate. Anybody like to kick off? No? Yes? Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Mayor. Could I, two questions, well, actually a statement rather than a question to Graham and the members of those, the Independent Remuneration Panel, just to say thank you. It's a pretty thankless task that you carry out. And so I just put my thanks, or our thanks, on record to you and your panel. One question is did you have, I know that you can only base your decision on the evidence that you're provided with, and I think we've tried to actively encourage as many councillors as possible to respond in order to give you that evidence and actually make your job worth doing, because without that evidence, there's not a lot you can report back to us. So can I just ask, did you have a better representation of councillors this time around?
We certainly had councillor representations on the broad area of our review process, and that sort of evidence is absolutely vital. I would just make the point that whilst individual councillor evidence is invaluable to our processes, we have to bear in mind that one of our primary considerations is what does the council expect of the role, which might not be exactly the same as how an individual councillor operates in that role. That said, yes, we did have some very valuable feedback from individual councillors, which we appreciate and we respect. But I just launched that little caveat, but thank you.
Any other member? Okay, so if we go to the votes on the recommendation. Are we voting on here? Yeah. I think everyone voted.
It's carried anyway.
Yeah, I think that's carried unanimously. Thank you all very much, and Graham, thank you very much, and your colleagues.
50 minutes in reserve.
Those mince pies are going to come around quicker. Okay. Okay, so we now then move on to item 10, which is the annual report of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. and I'm delighted to invite the Chair, Councillor Tabby Joy, to introduce her report.
Cool. So I'm really excited to do this. I might just stand up actually. This has been a really exciting year for overview and scrutiny. Working on the transition between the former committee as well as the incoming members has been a really interesting process, because we just kind of wanted to take an opportunity to reflect on our successes, as well as kind of look to the future to kind of see what kind of possibilities there may be in store for us. I became chair in autumn last year, so it's been quite an intense learning process for me. Some of you may remember the call-in that we did on my very first meeting, so that was a real highlight. We're trying to be more proactive now to ensure that we kind of minimise risk of like last-minute call-ins and interventions. So I'm really excited to kind of, I'm looking forward to basically reporting back next year on the progress that we've made up until this moment and then beyond that. So the sorts of things that we covered, including the call-in with the transfer between Cheltenham Borough Homes into reabsorbing back into Cheltenham Borough Council. That's been a really good process, and I'm very proud of the achievements of the team, the working group that was working on that and examining it. I would really like to express my appreciation to everyone who participated in that, including members of the public who brought in their own views, and representatives from CBH at the time who were able to kind of ensure like a good delivery. And it's still an iterative process, but I feel like we're onto a really good keel with that one. The fact that we've also managed to examine like various different sort of processes as part of our usual remit, we're shaking it up a little bit in due course, because there have been quite a lot of like historic processes that we've undertaken year on year. So we'll have the Police and Crime Commissioner coming in, an examination of Race Week. We've examined housing and homelessness, and as well as the airport. But of course, these things inevitably change. There's always going to be slight disruptions and things that we have to adapt towards. So I was really excited this year as well to involve committee members in setting the work plan. So actually seeing what we're all interested in looking at, things that we feel may have been overlooked a little bit in past times. So that's something to look forward to next year, is very much seeing how that's shaken out and seeing how it's progressed. It's been really great sort of being able to examine matters like the Minster Exchange as well, which is a project that's been successfully delivered now and is currently, I think it's at least 72% in operation, occupied now. So just being able to see kind of how that's progressed and what's happened. I'm very proud of the annual report that's been put together, just because having like a comprehensive like summary of everything we've looked at, this is just kind of a summary of everything we've been looking at. So ideally, if anyone, whether you've had a look at it or not, I do welcome people kind of feeding into it and sort of giving us any feedback of things that you'd like us to build into it. This is something that's open to literally everyone, but we want to make sure that we're actually sharing the best sort of like level of information that makes it approachable to all users, whether that's councillors or members of the public. So I'd be very happy to take any questions that anyone has at this time. Because it's, again, all points of feedback. Thank you.
Tabby, thank you very much. Councillor Horwood.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to thank Councillor Joy for her very full report. One thing it doesn't particularly highlight is health issues and NHS issues, and obviously that is one of the scrutiny representatives that reports into ONS on a regular basis. Our MP has recently raised in Parliament issues to do with GP services, to do with the performance of A&E in Gloucestershire, which is a real worry, and most of all access to NHS dentistry, which is in some crisis. So are there any particular issues that she's aware of from the reports that have come to ONS that she'd like to take this opportunity to highlight?
Thank you so much for that, actually, because I think you're right. I think something that's on our to-do list a little bit is integrating our external committees' reports more widely into the annual report. So in some ways like that, that's definitely on me. I was relatively involved with creating this report this time around, so genuinely that's really, really helpful feedback, and I'll make sure that that's prioritised going ahead. There's a part of me that kind of wants to start writing next year's report like now, just so that I don't miss out on anything. And because we're like midway through that duration anyway, I do remember Councillor Payne, when he was still chairing, he did actually raise a query specifically about dentistry because it was such a serious issue. And again, that could have been something that we'd put on the report. So I think that sort of like checking the progress of that and sort of making sure that we're kind of bringing in different work streams. If it feels appropriate to draw in what the MPs representing Cheltenham Borough Council and Tewkesbury Borough Council also drawing in, I think that could be really helpful because, again, I want to make this a workable summary of sort of things that are going on just so that everyone is aware of the continuity between it. There's a part of me that feels like I'm very much TMI tabby with these things, like there's never too much information for me, so I don't want to overwhelm people, but just being able to empower people with like a decent working landscape of everything that's going on really. It's an iterative process, so I definitely want to welcome more health scrutiny into that. Does that answer your question okay, or do you have any follow-ups? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bamford?
I hope I can help a bit here. I write the reports for Tabby's committee. It might be helpful if I wrote an annual summary. And I'd agree entirely with Councillor Horwood and his the issue he raises around dentistry, A&E weights, ambulance weights. I could go on. There are lots of health issues. Cancer weights have been a big issue in the last year. Cancer weights are the 62-day target. Yes, but anyway, I think perhaps a summary would be good and that could be included in this report. I wonder if there's any, I sit on that committee on every 6 weeks. There may be other issues that I'm not aware of that members of this council are aware of and would like me to raise. So my email box or phone or person are always available to bring any such issues up. Thank you.
Tabby, did you want to respond or just?
I just want to say thank you so much, and I would really welcome your input. Thank you so much. Also, just to put it out there, I'm quite self-conscious about the fact that I kind of helped to create the budget scrutiny working group report. But if that's something that you'd like to take on or definitely feed more into, that would be amazing because I want to make sure that your voice is quite clear throughout this process. So.
Yeah, happy to do that. I've only just taken over as the chair of the committee, but I'm more than happy to do something similar for budget scrutiny as I talked about the HOSC just then. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Jeffries, then Councillor William.
Thank you, Councillor Joy. It's always a pleasure to read the annual report of scrutiny. Councillor Horwood raises some interesting topics around health, but if I look in your report there, one of the most interesting, fascinating ones you touch on is around deprivation. Now, clearly these things aren't in our control, but I absolutely love the fact that scrutiny attack these topics with such gusto, such quality of questioning and such diligence. And with your guidance at that committee has been doing a fantastic job. We may not be able to shift the dial to have seismic impacts on some of these issues, but undoubtedly we try and get the best for our residents in Cheltenham. And I absolutely love the fact of that inclusivity in terms of what scrutiny does and brings to that. So thank you, Councillor Joy. That's what it really was from me.
I don't think that was a question, but that was. Did you want to come back, Debbie? Yeah.
Yeah. Genuinely, thank you so much because I'm sorry that I forgot to cover it in my speech just now, but I was really excited to see that local government associations peer review did particularly pick out the deprivation report and the work that we're doing on that. It is incredibly valuable. And again, having that joined up approach as well, sort of seeing the sort of work that we're doing and the way addressing deprivation and associated issues can tie into that. I think one of the things that I find really exciting about overview and scrutiny is that it does give the capacity for backbenchers in a way to pitch in their ideas. It's quite a useful platform for that. So yeah, I genuinely really welcome that so much. And we're trying to kind of take steps to make the work more inclusive. Democratic Services have been working really hard on proactively identifying points of issues that, might want to explore, bringing in an external trainer as well, just so that we're not just having the discussions, but acting on it as well, and just empowering other people to be able to take up the recommendations that, people are using their expertise to feed into. So yeah, it's a really exciting time. It's a bit changing, but I would say I feel positive that it's for the better. So yeah, good times.
Thank you. Councillor William.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to say something about the, well, I wanted to say two things really. Firstly, about the tackling deprivation, because it's important to the area I represent, and I know it's important to the area you represent as well as some of our other colleagues across the town. And it's one of these things that I hope we will keep on the annual work plan and look at on a frequent basis, because this is one that we just can't take our eye off of. The other question was, in terms of licensing policy, we've got a couple of quite chunky items coming up next in the next few months. And I just wondered whether you would be, obviously licensing committee is the statutory consultee for the council, but whether you'd be interested in joint scrutiny, working licensing and overview and scrutiny to look at these things so we get the widest range of inputs.
So very enthusiastic. Sorry, I'm so excited about this that I am literally stammering. Yeah, really enthusiastic. Yes, to the second point, because I mean, being on the licensing committee and learning quite a lot about it recently, I kind of feel like it would be really interesting for people to learn more about it and kind of apply like our induction training to it as well. It also, because this is something that our residents bring up to us quite often, it's a very visible issue, like many elements of licensing. So if people can kind of draw in feedback and experience to that, that would be really, really great. And I would love to be able to do that. A reminder for everyone that our work plan is iterative. So anyone can bring forward suggestions, either to me or to Councillor Jackie Chellin as well, or to Councillor Stan Smith, to Democratic Services. We have several avenues for that as well. And we're always up for having a discussion about it. So yeah, that would be very, very welcome. And we'd be open to doing that with other groups as well, because we had our, this won't be in the annual report for this year just gone, but we have been looking at the planning, like the process of sort of planning applications, just to try and make sure that like our forward plan with that is as robust as possible. And just being able to influence draft policy in a way that kind of potentially anticipates potential problems and tries to correct them before it goes public. Is just kind of useful having like a couple of extra pairs of eyes on it. In terms of your first question about the multiple indices of deprivation as well, so that's an interesting one for us in a way, because we are kind of hoping that some of the recommendations that came from the report would be kind of like actually resolved in a way. So we kind of want to make sure that we're striking a good balance between identifying arising problems and also kind of addressing the problems that were raised in the first report. So you're right that we're always going to need to stay focused on this, but also not becoming kind of set in assumptions about it and just being like, this was a project, like this was a problem at this point in history and it will always be a problem. Ideally, we want to actually address issues and then make sure that other ones aren't cropping up unless we are dealing with them effectively. So this is going to be a really interesting project for us. I don't think I've only been a councillor for 2.5 years, so in my time as a councillor, I haven't dealt with anything quite like that before. But again, this is why it's really, really useful to have people feeding in ideas about our work plan and just making, if we know that this is a priority to other people, then it's something that we can justify very easily, including in our ongoing work plan. So the too long didn't read version of that is, yes, we will be including the multiple indices of deprivation, the reporting regarding that, but we will also be very interested in making sure that we're responding to any changes within that capacity as well as we go along.
Thank you. Councillor Hay.
Mayor, it's a comment rather than a question, so is that acceptable or shall I save it?
Sorry,
I think I wanted to just, one of the things that I do, not as leader, but as an elected member, is I go and do local government association peer reviews, looking at other councils. So I learn lots of stuff and we feed back in. You go as a critical friend. And one of the things that I've come away from the last few I've done is to say that actually, do you know, we've got a blinking good overview and scrutiny panel here in Cheltenham. We've come such a long way from when I was first councillor to where we are now, because I look at others who really say, well, we don't get involved in anything. And you think, well, how? Where's the scrutiny? So I just wanted to pass on the comment, is that that's my experience looking at what happens outside of Cheltenham, and to say thank you to all of the panel members on the committee. Thank you, Mayor.
So anybody else have any questions or anything they'd like to say on the report? No? Oh, Councillor Finnegan.
Thank you. I almost didn't say anything, but it's back to the multiple indices of deprivation, and those have not been updated since 2019, and I think this council would do well to maybe write to Parliament, to our MP, and ask when there will be an update, because we're basing all of our efforts on something that's now 5 years out of date.
So we're into debate now, so I'll let Tabby respond to any further things that get raised. So anybody else wants to say anything before I go back to Tabby? No? The only thing I'd like to say, Tabby, is really to congratulate you on your chairmanship of that committee and the diligence that you've shown in dealing with it, the way you've answered questions today, absolutely superb. So very well done. And if you wanted to respond to Councillor Pinniger. Okay.
So genuinely, thank you so much, because that's a really good contribution. I think that, again, kind of having that vertical integration of like different authorities as well, because again, it's bringing in that expertise. I think that you're right that we do kind of run a risk. I understand that again, it's that striking point between undergoing a lot of consultation and gathering a lot of data, and some of it is kind of timeless and some of it is not as much. So asking for updates on a report that was released 5 years ago, essentially, like that would be a vital part of our operations, is just making sure that we're as responsive to the changing situation as possible, I would say. If I keep forgetting that I can ask for stuff in my capacity as chair, so if you'd like me to write to our MP and collaborate with you on making sure that it's phrased properly and that it's answering the questions that you have, then that's definitely something that I'd be really happy to give it a go. So if you'd like to do that, I'd be really, really up for it. Thank you.
Okay, well, strictly speaking, we don't need to have a vote on this. I think as an endorsement for all the work that's been done and the quality of the report and what it's covered, can we have a vote and show all those in favour, please? There we go. I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much. So we now move on to item 11, which is the Local Council Tax Support Scheme. I'll invite Councillor Alicia Lewis to introduce her report.
Fabulous. There we go. The X Factor results are in on that, and it was unanimous. That's always great. But thank you, Mr. Mayor, for letting me speak twice in this meeting. I'm going to get through my reports as fast as I can, because I know many of you have Christmas plans at the pub. But this is one of those reports that I think it's really easy to read through and to skim over and go, oh, well, it's a council tax consultation. We all love a good council tax consultation, but it's not the height of festive excitement. But I think this is a really important report, and I don't want to let it just slide by, because it's a bit of an administrative report we have to do every year. So council tax support is one of the most powerful levers we as a council have to keep money in the pockets of people in Cheltenham who are struggling, families who are struggling to work out how they're going to heat their homes this winter, and those who are having to choose between paying household bills and being able to afford food, drink, or even Christmas presents this year. It's one of the best things I think we do, and Cheltenham has quite possibly one of the most generous policies in this regard of any council that I've worked with, and with any finance cabinet member I've spoken to across the country. It is our annual legal obligation, which, as you can imagine, is very exciting, to consult on this scheme, and we got some great responses, so thank you to all of those who did respond to the scheme. And I'm really proud to say that while local government finances are pretty tough, everybody knows this, we have found a way to be even more generous this year than before, which I think is testament to this council's incredibly robust financial management, that we have that slipping room to be able to be more generous even in tough times. And one change particularly I want to highlight, because it's easy to miss in all the tables and the charts that you've been sent, is that we've opened a new category of support for those in receipt of funds from the Armed Forces Compensation Scheme. So our armed forces across the world and across the UK secure our future. They secure our liberal future, they secure our rights both abroad and at home, and they have given so much of their time, their lives, particularly away from their family and friends, even over Christmas, over the course of their lives, to protect the lifestyle that we live. We are very privileged in this country, as we know, looking at many others around the world, to be living. And so if there's anything we can do as a council to give back, then I think we should. And we have been able to do that this year. So we will be disregarding payments that come through that Armed Forces Compensation Scheme as income. So one thing we knew, and it's a shame that Councillor Harvey isn't here, because it's something he raised for many years, was that there were so many people in Cheltenham on that Armed Forces finance who were just above the line for council tax support, but because they got that Armed Forces money, they were just above that line. So now we're disregarding it. We're going to be able to help a lot of Armed Forces veterans across Cheltenham have a little bit more money in their pockets this Christmas and moving forward. So I think that's something we can all welcome, and I also welcome any questions.
Thank you. Any questions then, please? No. Any debate? Anyone have to speak? Councillor Trailford.
I touched on this when we had it to Cabinet, and I think it's important to saying that this is one of many things that we do as a council for our most vulnerable residents that I think really should be commended. You know, we've got No Child Left Behind and all the amazing work that does. We recently got to 8,000 food bank items donated with our recycling broker Plan B. And we've got so many other things, such as the card for food bank vouchers to be able to use our leisure centre. And I think this is another thing that we do that goes miles ahead of most other councils and most other administrations that there are. And I think it's a testament to what we do and everyone here to really push that forward and to work to make this happen for our residents and our most vulnerable residents at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor William.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to add my endorsement to the decision about the armed forces compensation. Our armed forces do a huge amount. There are people that put themselves in harm's way for us, and I think this is a very good way of actually showing some respect back to those who've done a lot for the country. Just looking through the statistics, the consultation got, by the looks of it, 40 responses, which doesn't seem to be a lot, of which only, 4 people who are currently getting council tax support responded. And it might be worth trying to drive that up next year, because I think the response isn't, I don't think it's a very statistically significant response. I'm also guessing that since only 2 of the 5 answers to other in question 4 were printed, that the other 3 suggestions either were blank or not printable. But yeah, happy to support this.
Thank you. Councillor Wheeler.
Yes, thank you. And unlike the residents of Cheltenham, it's good to see that the Grinch will have cold comfort this year. And I think particularly with the press sat at the back of us, I think it would be really good if we could make sure that the residents of Cheltenham are aware of that fact, and it isn't just that we're doing good things, but that's our job.
Thank you. And on that point, it's very easy to forget the levels of deprivation in our town when we walk down our promenade or we walk around Montpellier. And so I think one of the biggest challenges this council faces, and the opportunities are a bit limited, is to redistribute wealth where we can. And this is a great example of where we are able to do something, and we are doing something. So congratulations to the Cabinet member and all those involved in making this decision. Anybody else before we move to, I'll invite Alicia to sum up or respond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to everyone who has commented on this, particularly to the Cabinet Member for Waste and Recycling for bringing up the point that this is part of a wider support package that we offer to residents across Cheltenham. And I think it's such a great thing that we're able to do. And the great thing about Cheltenham Borough Council being Cheltenham Borough Council now and having CBH come back in and have all these partnerships that all work really interconnected within this council is that we can do joined up working and that we can understand what pressures residents are facing, particularly in our social homes. And so we can adapt the schemes like this to support those residents, like those who are in receipt of armed forces funding. So it's a really optimistic Christmas little story for us in this meeting, I think.
Hear, hear. So if we now move to the vote on the recommendations. That's unanimous again. Thank you all very much. Oh, sorry. It remains unanimous though. Thank you all very much. Okay, so we now move on to item 12, and I'll invite Alicia again to introduce the half-yearly Treasury Management Report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for that level of enthusiasm when welcoming me once again to speak to this chamber. This is my last speech, so it's a little bit long, but I hope you can indulge me somewhat, given the importance of what we talk about today. So, as a council, Cheltenham safeguards a substantial amount of money, and that money is not my money, it is not your money, it is the people of Cheltenham's money, and we treat it with that level of respect and that level of regard. The days when central government funding or council tax alone would cover the cost of delivering the services Cheltenham needs, not just the ones we're legally obligated to deliver, are long gone. I'm not entirely sure they ever existed within the period of my lifetime, but if they ever did, they certainly don't exist now. And so delivering our services is predicated ultimately on our ability to maintain a robust investment strategy. We are being asked to do more with less, both by central government, who turn around and say, you must do this, you must do that, so we don't have to do it, so we don't have to say we're making cuts. But also by the rising pressures that residents in Cheltenham are facing with the costs of their housing, the cost of their fuel bills, the number of households, children and young people who are at risk of homelessness, those who need support for accessing services. The numbers are just going up, and central government's funding most certainly is not going up with it. And so we have to spend and manage every last penny, not just like it's our money, but like it's the money that keeps Cheltenham rolling. So Cheltenham's Treasury is not some high-flying Wall Street investment trader's deck. It is a carefully managed set of investment funds and approaches to borrowing that ultimately exists not to buy a nice red sports car, but to ensure that we can pay for those services, like No Child Left Behind, that if this council were to fall, if this council were to hit bankruptcy, the first thing the overpaid Deloitte consultants who would be sent down to Cheltenham to balance our budget would do would say, well, supporting children, that's discretionary, you don't have to do that. Leisure centres, discretionary, you don't have to do that. If we want decisions about the future of Cheltenham to be made here in Cheltenham, then we have to work out how on earth we manage that budget. Nobody, not even Keir Starmer, it seems, given the drama that's been going on around the white paper, knows exactly what's going to be happening to Cheltenham Borough Council. But I think one thing we know for sure is that we will safeguard every damn penny that the people of Cheltenham give us. We invest it in Cheltenham wherever possible, and ultimately we will invest in the best interests of our town, no matter what anyone, especially central government, throws at us. So I'm really heartened by this report. I think it shows that we have a robust investment strategy that is able to cover the cost of those luxury discretionary services, which are make or break, live or die for so many residents here in Cheltenham. The world is a changing place, and many of our investments are changing with it, whether that's our approach to sustainability and climate change and to geopolitical pressures, which are only getting weirder year in, year out. But our portfolio is managing and weathering that storm in a way that I think remains prudential, and our repayment strategy reflects our financial circumstances. So I thank the officer team who have led on this work. They do exceptional work, as always. And for those across the council who keep us on the straight and narrow, day in, day out, to ensure we can afford to deliver those services and make those smart choices. So I welcome any questions.
Thank you. So any questions? No? Debate? Anyone like to hear off debate? Councillor Clucas?
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, what I would like to say is to you, and it's thank you. And the reason I want to say thank you, but before I do, let me just ask a question. How many people here have children or grandchildren or nephews or nieces? How many of us? Come on, hands up, don't be shy. So just about all of us here will know what it's like for a child to be little and to grow. And as they grow, to want to do things, experience things, to go to bed, perhaps reading a book when they're not supposed to, what Katie did, that was mine, or to want to go out and have a good time, or not to feel hungry when they're going to bed, or to be able to go to school and not feel their shoes are too tight for them to wear. And one of the things that I feel incredibly proud about, Mr. Mayor, is this council started and does No Child Left Behind to help children who are in need and their families who are in need. And in 2024 Britain, it should not be necessary. But the truth is, it is. And because it's necessary, we have helped, I think in the last couple of years, some 7,000 children. Think of that in Cheltenham. Just think about that as a number. And you think, oh, Cheltenham, plenty of money, everybody's got money. No, they haven't. And so building this in to the work that you've done, I think is incredible, because this will give our parents, our carers, our grannies and granddads, our aunties and uncles, belief that for the next future that they can see ahead of them, their children will not be left out, will not be left behind, and they will be able to access the help that they need. So, Mr. Mayor, can I just say, through you, to colleagues here and to officers, what a great piece of work that is, and how proud people here should be of what they've been able to give our children who otherwise would not have it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lucas. Anybody else? Councillor Lewis, did you wish to respond?
Just briefly to thank Councillor Clucas for what is always an incredibly emotive speech on the matter of No Child Left Behind. I think this is the thing that I find speaking to finance cabinet members across the country. I've been on training programmes, and I like to be nosy in other people's accounts. It's very interesting if you want to do something on your weekend to go through other local councils' finances. The thing that really hits me when we talk about things like No Child Left Behind is that central government simply will not step up. We cannot believe at any point that central government will ever have the will, the enthusiasm, or the basic ability to manage money sufficiently to do projects like this. If we want the people of Cheltenham, particularly the children and those most vulnerable in Cheltenham, to get the care and the support and the exciting experiences as well that No Child Left Behind offers, then we have to do it in Cheltenham. And if we want to do that, then we have to have a really robustly managed treasury, because without that, we simply cannot afford it. I mean, all of us wish, particularly at this festive time of year, that the world ran on love and goodwill and good ideas, but ultimately the world runs on your ability to pay to do things, to deliver programs like this. So while finance can be a bit dry, I know many people when I was appointed to this role went, "You want finance? What do you want finance for?" But I took it on because ultimately our ability to make smart financial choices liberates us to make the choices that the people of Cheltenham need and that they deserve. And without that, those services will simply not exist. And that's why I'm really proud of this report and the budget that we've got coming forward tomorrow.
Thank you. So if we can move to the vote on the recommendations, please. That's unanimous once again. Thank you all very much. So we now move on to item 13, which is the review of polling district, polling places and polling stations. And delighted to invite our electoral registration officer, Paul Jones, to introduce his report. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. This report, in accordance with the Electoral Registration and Administration Act 2013, the Council is required to complete a full review of all its polling districts, polling places and polling stations every 5 years. This report aims to fulfil that requirement. I think the recommendations are self-explanatory and rather obviously reading any further from the report, I'll open that up to questions. Colleagues from the Electoral Services team are in the room should there be any detailed questions. Thank you.
You just switch off. Oh, okay. Councillor Collins.
Oh, sorry, I'll say that again. Thank you, Mayor. And thank you to the team and to Paul, because I know there's an awful lot of work that's gone into this. But just to prove that I've read every single line of this 350-page agenda, I have noticed, I hope it's an error. On page 186, under the recommendations, second bullet point, under the Ben Hall, the Readings and Fiddler's Green, and it is the longest ward name in the town, I know that. It says it only refers to polling district CA. But if you go further into the report, page 195, the table that's contained there, it states that this change applies to both CA and CB polling districts. So I think that's correct. So I just think the recommendation needs to be amended accordingly, unless you're going to tell me otherwise, of course. I mean, for those of you that have read the report, you'll see on page 195 that CA and CB are currently served by one of the schools in Ben Hall. And I don't like schools being used as polling stations. As I'm the one that always seems to get the 7 o'clock shift for telling at elections, I see the very selfish behaviour of people and the fact they're hurrying to work or whatever. So I just don't think it's the right sort of environment. So I fully support moving it to where it's going to be. But can I just clarify that with you, Paul, and make sure that, yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor. Thank you. Councillor Willingham.
So just a couple of questions. So we're on questions, aren't we, at the minute? Yeah. For the site that's the umbrella, which is St Mark's OA, which I represent as a county councillor, can we confirm what the polling station will actually be? Is it in the building or is it a porta cabin in the car park? Have we done any quality impact, in which case, have we done any quality impact assessment on that? Because there might well be people who, for cultural, religious reasons, cannot or should not go into a pub would suggest to me that this might not be an appropriate location for a polling station.
So it's not actually in the pub itself, it's in the function room at the back. A full impact assessment has been done to ensure that those with disabilities, etc., will be able to get access. So whilst I'm sure the publican would very much be welcome, any electors to stop by for a pint, there will not be any obligation to do so.
And the final question is, because it's not in either the polling district or the actual the polling district or even the ward it covers, is this something we can look at in future? For example, the church hall at St Mark's Church, which is actually in the polling district, because if you live the other side of St Mark's, close to Lansdowne Road, that's quite a long way to go for the polling station. So it's can we look at this again to see if we can find somewhere more appropriate?
You should use the speaker system because people who are listening couldn't have heard that. Can you just some of that Paul?
Try. Yeah, so on behalf of Kim, the Electoral Services Manager, so there is obviously a commitment to constantly review polling stations. As I think one of your previous members who spoke about the use of schools, I think over the last couple of years with snap general elections, by-elections, there's been a significant disruption to schools, and a number of head teachers have reached out to me personally and said, you know, can we look for alternatives? Obviously, one of the venues in close proximity was Rowanfield School, and so we've looked for an alternative. As Kim said, you know, this has been out to consultation, and whilst I and colleagues think that we know Cheltenham really, really well, you as local ward members probably know your wards even better than I do. So absolutely welcome, and yeah, there's definitely a constant need to keep these under review. So I think from a Cheltenham constituency, this is probably the first time that we've used a public house stroke venue. Obviously they are well utilised across the country, so this will be a first for us, and obviously we'll do a review after the next election.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Allen, then Councillor Pinniger, and Councillor Barrell.
Thank you very much for the report, Paul. It's a good report. I'm very happy with the recommendations that have been put forward, especially with regards to my ward in Swindon Village, which I'm happy to see a new polling district created with the hope that this should hopefully boost voter turnout in the area between Bridge Street and Sun Street. Although I am conscious that the polling district recommended lies outside of the ward, hopefully the distance shouldn't be too far. I'm thinking in particular of residents in Bridge Street and Richards Road, that it would turn voters away from voting on election day. But my specific point in question is in relation to Appendix 3. I've noticed that Swindon Village is not included in this appendix. Now, I'm not too sure if this is perhaps an oversight or if this is intentional. So any clarity on this would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Can we use a mic? Can we use a mic?
Don't speak to you on the mic.
Okay. There you go. Try this one.
Am I on this?
Oh.
Which one?
This one.
Can I speak? Yeah, it's not included in Appendix 3 because when we do a polling review, we have to do it on constituencies, and Swindon Village is in Tewkesbury constituency and not Cheltenham constituency.
Sorry. Yeah, just would it be possible to have a follow-up to that, if that's okay? Great. Just to quickly say then, would it be possible to have, perhaps separate to this report, just a review of RA, RB, RC and RD, please? Just because I'm trying to look for how this was split out. I can't seem to find this in the report itself, but please let me know if I'm perhaps looking in the wrong place.
ABCD there. I'm sorry, ABC there, and then ABCD there. So you've lost D from Appendix 4. Makes any sense?
No, the reason being, can I just explain that the returning officer's report was before we make any changes, so there was only RA, RB and RC, and the suggestion was to split polling district RC and create a new polling district RD, and so the appendix with the new polling districts on has got as they would be if they're approved by council. Is that okay?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
That's not there, just in case.
Thank you. Councillor Pinniger?
Hi, it's about the umbrella again, and the distance that I measured from the end of Roman Road to the umbrella pub is just about a mile or maybe a little more. So it is quite a long way out. So I'm really pleased to hear that you keep this under review regularly, and I would ask for a review next time before 2026. But also the community centre we're hopeful that it will come back into use very soon. I wanted to ask the question whether, even though OA already uses that as a polling station, there is another room that potentially could be used for OB. I wondered if it's possible to have both polling stations in the same location. Would they need to be in those two separate rooms, or can they be combined?
Sorry, I'm not quite sure. It's GB and OB that go to the St Mark's and Hester's Way. Is that the one that you're saying about? Community centre?
I wasn't, I mean, I knew...
sorry, I thought you said OA. Which polling station did you mean?
Indeed, I was talking about St Mark's, which is in two halves, OA and OB. I had noticed that some Hester's Way people came to that polling station, so...
The people in OB that were in the community centre, we used two polling stations there. We have OB for St Mark's and GB for Hester's Way. So we had two polling stations at that community centre.
Okay, so maybe I've missed something, but perhaps all of St Mark's should be in a polling station in St Mark's, and Hester's Way could be at the...
I see what you're saying, yeah.
Councillor Barrow, yep.
Yes, thank you. If I could just clarify, within Park Ward, we had KB and KC at the last election. And it's now been suggested that KB and KC are put together. Which is fine from the borough point of view. What is the situation for the county? Because KC in the past was actually in a different district. It wasn't in Park and Lansdowne. So is KC now going to be part of KB for the district elections, the county ones?
Yes, that's the reason. One of the things that we were able to do because of the county boundaries changing, we were able to tidy up some of the little smaller polling districts and merge the same. they were going to that polling station, but we're able to merge them now with the rest of KB, or we should be once the order goes through.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'm not sure we needed a debate, but does anyone want to speak? Oh, Councillor Lewis. So this is not a question, it's debate. Yeah, thank you.
It's more of a statement, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for indulging me a little bit for a debate that doesn't probably need to exist. But I remind councillors across the chamber that they are consulted on this matter at an early point in the year, and that's a great time. It comes round through your emails, I think June, or sometime around that framework. You're asked about what polling stations might work, what's working in your area, and if you want the outcomes of these projects to align with what you're after, it'd be really good if you responded at that stage to give the officers the time they need to make good decisions.
Okay, so nobody else wishes to speak? So we'll just go to the vote on the recommendations. There we go. Is all done? One person not voted. All done. Lovely. Unanimous again. Thank you all very much. Right. Okay. So now on to item 14, Member Development Strategy. And I'll ask Councillor Jackie Chelling to introduce her report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm really pleased to present this new draft for a new member development strategy, and very much welcome feedback on this. I do manage the budget and the policy regulation around staff development in my day job, so I am a very keen advocate of staff development and training, and see it very much as an investment in people. So taking an innovative and strategic approach, I think, is necessary to this area of work, partly because there are frequently changing regulations and the council itself undergoes quite a bit of change that need to be understood. Every 2 years, we have some more new members who need those updates and clarification. And, of course, looking in no particular direction, we have some quite long-standing members of the council who need to be encouraged and excited to retrain and refresh on various items. So we all understand, I think, that the effectiveness of the councillors is really important to our communities and our residents, and to understand and have knowledge of the council services, and to have good relationships with those officers, much of which is generated actually through the training and development activities. A lot of the officers do some excellent training for us, for example. We also now, thanks to our Democratic Services team, have a members hub where all the training and development resources are in one place, which includes resources that are recorded to make things as accessible as possible. So the operation of the strategy and the delivery of these of the training and development takes account of very different circumstances of members. We have members who are working full-time, who are shift working, who have caring responsibilities, both in terms of children and maybe elderlies. And also people have their own preferences for format and how they best learn. So online, in-person, synchronous, asynchronous training and development is offered. But it is a work in progress, and we don't always get it right. And so constant feedback and ongoing monitoring and evaluation is particularly important to adjust and ensure take-up. Members' attendance at training is very public. Obviously, it's on the council's website, all the training that members undertake. And whilst it might not be the go-to place for our residents to check on what we're doing. There are lots of other things they like to contact us about. It is significant, I think, that it's available there. But looking forward, we really want to use and develop this strategy to engage and promote what we do to new councillors, prospective councillors, candidates, to ensure that they're aware that their interests and development is taken into account. And we also, additionally and importantly, this time round, are aiming to achieve the South West Council's Charter Status Accreditation. Yes, I said it, for councillor development. And again, this, if we achieve this, that will be another promotional means of hopefully engaging and attracting people to the council. So I'd like to say just very much thanks to our Democratic Services colleagues who manage the operational aspects largely of our training and development, stay late while we do the training and everything like that. So very pleased to be working with them on this. And please, if you have any questions or comments, I think it's an ongoing conversation, but clearly we will be trying to aim for this accreditation, and I hope you'll support us with that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Chelin. Any questions? No? Any debates? Councillor Rowena Hay.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say a big thank you to Jackie for actually taking up this mantle and doing it so effectively as well. I mean, your day job, it's a perfect for us as members. But thank you for leading on this, because without you, I mean, you have driven it. I know DS are very supportive and they do a lot of work, but you really have driven the direction of travel. So thank you.
I would just add that I hope I'm not one of the long-standing councillors that you were alluding to. But if I was, thank you for not mentioning me by name. Anybody else? No? So should we move to the votes on this one? Is that right? Yep. There we go. Oh, that's it now. Tony Oliver's gone, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's unanimous again. So thank you very much. So that now takes us to the notice of motion, road chaos in Swindon Village. And I'm delighted to invite Councillor Allen to propose the motion. Councillor Cluglas will be seconding. So, Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the Council, I remember the cold days and nights in the run-up to the local elections. We were not only campaigning for our cause, but discussing the issues that mattered most with our residents. I remember how the poor state of our roads was consistently brought up. I saw how clearly the residents of my ward felt let down by Gloucestershire County Council on how the roads were managed. I heard of the atrocious traffic, of how the prolonged Manor Road closure worsened this, of how a lack of speeding and parking controls made the roads treacherous, particularly around the schools that our children use. Not to say that I saw all of this firsthand as well. This stuck with me. Unfortunately, this chaos did not stop once the local elections were over. It only worsened. May 2020-24 saw so many road closures that I heard of delays of up to an hour, of residents missing crucial appointments, of local businesses losing their sources of income. Then there was the intolerable amount of traffic that followed. Already this was too much to bear. Then came the reports of serious accidents. A lady was struck off of her bike and seriously injured by a large vehicle just off of the Swindon Road Bridge. We have been calling for this bridge to be improved, with no answer. A house off of Swindon Road was struck by a speeding taxi, causing bricks from their wall to strike their roof and a gas main to be left leaking. We have been calling for traffic management in and around Swindon Road, with no answer. Councillor Clucas and I worked hard to put together a petition addressing all of these concerns to the County Council. This petition was widely shared and signed by our residents. Yet while we were glad the County Council at least responded, we were shocked by the lack of action taken to address the issues and recommendations we raised. So we took to drafting the motion, which is in front of you today. The concerns we raised will not be news to our councillors. Residents across Cheltenham are appalled by the state of our roads. Despite taking 74% of our council tax, the Tory-run County Council has consistently faltered in its commitment to keeping our roads well managed, safe and usable. This is a concern that we all share. More than this, though, we must realise that Swindon Village is the gateway to our town and its future development. Without well-managed roads, how can we possibly deliver on our goals for making Cheltenham the cyber capital of the UK? The buck stops with Swindon Village, where the roads issues are so acute that the thought of future development to our residents seems incomprehensible. Do you want a modern, efficient and net zero Cheltenham? Well, then we need to fix the foundation, starting with proper road management. We are calling on the leader of the council and the cabinet member for planning and the chair of planning to ensure we do not have to suffer this mismanagement for any longer. We are asking that they write to the County Council to support the recommendations which the residents of Swindon Village have put forward. The recommendations which will have an immeasurable contribution to making Cheltenham a forward-looking and modern town. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clucas, do you want to speak now? Later on? Yeah. Any member wish to speak? Councillor Telford, yeah.
I just wanted to obviously congratulate Frank on what I think is your first motion. I think that's really good. But also, obviously, one of the things in there you mentioned is, and a lot of it does rely on things like a TRO. And I think one thing that is notable recently is with all of the Zone 15 chaos in my ward with the County Council, they finally this time decided to use an experimental TRO, which is something they were against for a long time and kept on pushing it back against. But it allows them to make changes and see if they actually work and then make further changes in the future if they don't. And I think that's really important that along with this, they explore that for this, because it means you're not stuck with a decision that might not have worked out. They have the opportunity to do an experimental TRO, and I think you should campaign them for it.
Thank you. Councillor Took.
So we're at the debate now, or questions? Debate. So thank you, Councillor Allen, for your motion. You've spoken up for your own area really admirably, and I absolutely respect that. Your motion has actually touched a number of raw nerves with me. So, for instance, you talk about the need for pedestrians to be able to cross the road safely. In Pittville, a year and a half ago, an 11-year-old boy was hit by a car. Since that time, we got a petition of 1,000 people. We got 2 MPs to sign it, and still nothing has happened. You talked about the need to manage utility companies properly. Well, we're meant to be pleased with the County Council now that they're making sure that tarmac is pulled up within 6 months. They were always meant to do that. It touches directly on the public realms motion that we did last month. I feel we've been let down by Conservative GCC. I feel we've been let down by them badly. And my concern is that as we move to further urban density of housing, and in the absence of a proper integrated transport policy, actually highways are going to have to raise their game. So for instance, if we're going to have housing on North Place, the Folly may have housing, Hardwick Campus may have housing. That is going to put pressure on the roads of Pittville, St Paul's, Swindon Village. And I don't think, on the evidence of what we see at the moment, that they will raise their game in order to support the residents across those areas. So I take your motion as a kind of broader rallying cry, I have to say, to keep the pressure on Conservative-run GCC and make sure the Tories are out at the next election.
Thank you, Councillor Took. Councillor Jeffries and then Councillor Willingham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Took, you stole my thunder and you did it so eloquently because I was quite emotional. In all my time as a councillor, the one thing I regularly speak to residents about, or residents regularly speak to me about, is the state of the roads. And it's getting worse. And Councillor Allen, I actually live just sort of down towards the end of my ward, And actually just trying to get to the supermarket when those roadworks were on was absolutely horrendous. So I can just imagine those residents living in Swindon Village must have been having a right time of it. So I fully would support your motion. It sort of beggars belief when you think about it, because we've got government clangos for all kinds of things. What about the roads? The roads are literally falling apart, no investment. And even when us as a district try and do something to support the county council, I mean, we spent all kinds of actions, time and money into the Connecting Channel report. A very sensible piece of work that would really support our communities. Do they care? No. So I think it's an extra push for me, motivational-wise, to do the politics and remove these failing Conservatives on the County Council once and for all. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor William, then Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So again, I would like to thank you for bringing this motion forward. I think a lot of the things on there aren't just the area that you represent. They are a symptom of problems with the County Council and also problems with other national providers like Network Rail. In terms of delivering traffic regulation orders, you would have thought that the Conservatives would have liked to have delivered something to improve safety around schools. Yet, despite it being funded by myself as a county councillor, we are 3 3/4 years into a term of office, and stuff funded in 2021 for traffic order is still yet to be implemented as part of a school safety scheme. That shows you how much they care about schools. In terms of 20-mile-an-hour speed limits, the County Council refused a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit around Rowanfield School, despite the school petitioning for it. They say that there's no need for 20 miles an hour. Now, I think we would like to see 20 miles an hour on residential streets because, quite frankly, nobody needs to be driving down there. Yet, I have evidence of the 30-mile-an-hour speed limits in the ward I represent being exceeded, with cars being tracked by County Council speed monitoring doing between 55 and 60 miles an hour on a narrow residential road. I'm glad to see you trying to take on Network Rail, or as it appears on the keyboard more often than not, Network Fail. They don't seem interested in upgrading any of the infrastructure around there. You have the level crossing up on Brockhampton, up in Brockhampton, just on the boundary of the ward you represent. The barrier downtimes of that run into measured in tens of minutes because the level crossing, same as the level crossing in the ward I represent, isn't properly managed. There's nothing being done to prevent bridge strikes on Hyde Lane. And maybe it was before your time, but you may remember there was a large number of skips on the back of a lorry that proceeded to drive under there and then have the driver's cab embedded in the bridge because of an overheight vehicle. Again, Network Rail really need pressure put on them to deliver better infrastructure for Cheltenham, and that includes sorting out the bridge in your ward that seems to claim a lot of wing mirrors and sadly seems to have also claimed injuries to pedestrians. None of this should be beyond the wit of the County Council and those strategic partners to deliver. So not only am I happy to support this, I am happy to help push this through because it is actually in the interests of all of us to have these improvements for our area. So there we go. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you to Councillor Allen for bringing this motion to us all here today. And as I get a mention, or at least my role gets a mention at the end there, I thought I'd better speak. I mean, I think there's a lot of agreement around the chamber about this being very, very important. And the first point I'd like to make is it's not just in the Swindon Village area. This motion would benefit probably the whole of the borough if it was to come to fruition. There's a couple of things on the recommendations. A general one, we need to get junction 10 sorted out on the M5, and the reason for that is it would relieve an awful lot of the pressures with people running and all that around the area. But it's not as easy as just saying, let's make junction 10 an all-way junction. The previous government, and maybe I'm being a bit harsh on the new government, but the previous government really did drag their heels over this, make it as difficult as possible. An example is that in planning, we have a planning inspector. If we can't agree on something, well, they don't have a planning inspector, they have an examiner for something called a development consent order for junction 10. And it's going through the process, but it's incredibly slow, because one of the things we have to look at is traffic flow and traffic modelling. And for the Golden Valley development, our consultants have got one model and they come up with a number. The county council, looking at exactly the same problem, exactly the same amount of traffic, they come up with a completely different number. And then Highways England get involved and they come up with a third completely different number. And you look at those three numbers and they're not similar, they're miles and miles apart. So we really do have to get onto them and make sure that that is improved. The other thing I've noticed on one of the points there about working with Network Rail, well, that's another really challenging relationship to have. In my ward, we've got a railway bridge on Badgeworth Road, and it's been shut for nearly 9 months because the county council couldn't agree with Network Rail, because the county council are responsible for the road that goes over the bridge, but Network Rail are responsible for the bridge itself. But they didn't know who was responsible for the embankments either side of the bridge, which were collapsing. Now, that work is being done and is due to be finished off in the next few weeks, keeping our fingers crossed. But it's not only a road that goes over a railway, it's a school route, it's a bus route. The amount of disruption it's caused to the local community, people going to secondary school for the very first time weren't able to go on the route that was laid down by the county council because the buses don't go that way anymore. They're not allowed to. They can't physically go that way. So there's an awful lot that we need to do here. And I think that GCC have got a massive role to play. They really have. And they need to do so much better. I think it's plain for everyone to see that they have not really stepped up to the plate here. So if I can do anything to help, obviously, I will do my best in my role as Cabinet Member for Planning. So just, keep nagging away at me. And I noticed you mentioned the leader in there as well. Yeah, and of course so go to her first, and also the chair of planning. But as a team, I'm sure we can make a collective here, go forward, and let's work with the county council. Let's not just completely blame them for absolutely everything that goes wrong, because they're just not going to play the game with us. So we need to make sure that we work in partnership and we get everything done to improve the situation, not just in your area, in the whole of the borough. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Joy.
Cool. So I just want to say thank you so much, and I'm really excited about this motion as well. I think it's a really good idea, and we do really welcome measures like this. The fact that we've had several testimonies about safety measures or lack thereof town-wide, I kind of feel slightly overdue with my scrutiny hat on. It kind of feels slightly overdue to have some kind of meaningful process of referring issues like this to the authority that's responsible for handling them. So a couple of members here have very kindly indulged Ashley and myself with some discussion about this motion over the weekend, because we were quite curious about the scope of it and about intersecting issues in relation to it. So today we're going to be really pleased to support it with the wider context that you've shared. So thank you so much to Councillors Allen and Clucas about that. I also wanted to make sure it's on the record, since unfortunately Councillor Atherstone isn't able to be here today, that she has been working in association with the OPCC officers and the Commissioner and the Deputy therein about road safety issues, since in her own ward of St Peter's there were 2 road accidents within a single week at the crossing of Brookland Road with Alston Lane, which was quite close to the Rowanfield Infants and Junior School. So with really pressing issues like this, while I really very much welcome the engagement that you've been doing specifically with members of your own ward, cars don't tend to just stay in one place, of course, they travel across multiple wards on a single journey. So there's so much to draw into this. And in some ways, ideally, I think building a coalition on this and data gathering from every sector of our experience, I think that would really be rich. I feel like our residents are richly deserving of having that sort of approach. The Green Group would be really keen to work cross-party on a road safety motion for the entire town, with particular focus, as Councillor Atherston mentioned, on schools with health centres and supported living facilities, as well as speeding and other road-based crimes, and poor quality road management as well. So I just really wanted to say thank you so much for the work you're putting into this. I'm looking forward to the future of expanding this as well. And I really wish you all of the luck with manifesting good outcomes for this, because whenever I think about the Swindon Road Railway Bridge, I kind of feel like I'm going to pass out. So yeah, I'm really glad that you're addressing that too. Thank you so much. Kind of very much a comment, not a question. Thanks.
Thank you. The Chair of Planning is Garth Barnes, and Garth is not feeling very well, so has left. But as Vice Chair, I would obviously confirm that we will support as much as we can. The difficulty we have on Planning Committee, as you'll be aware, being a member yourself, is that all highway matters are considered by the County Council, and it's very difficult for Planning Committee to go against the advice and recommendations of the Highways Authority, because if we do and it goes to appeal, we will end up with a huge amount of costs. So we have to try and work with the Highways Authority, and I think that's the trick, but we'll certainly be supporting you as far as we possibly can. Any other member? Oh, Councillor Clucas, did you want to? Anybody else before? No, Councillor Clucas.
Thank you, Frank, and can I thank all of you for your comments, because they are really valuable. And I'd like to give you 3 examples why they're valuable, if I may. The first is, I'd like you to imagine that you live on the corner of a street. And on that corner, you have a main road and the side road where you live. You're disabled. The street is actually quite narrow, the pavement is quite narrow. In the last 18 months, your wall has been hit 6 times by cars, by a bus, a coach, and by a lorry, trying to turn down your road and being, shall I say, not quite the expert drivers that they should be, because instead of staying on the road, they've smacked into your house 6 times. Let's look at what happened on the railway bridge that Frank mentioned earlier, where a lady was knocked off her bike. She was doing things absolutely right, and she was knocked off her bike and seriously injured. But she isn't the only one, because coming over that railway bridge, it's so narrow that those of you who have cars will have wing mirrors. Wing mirrors hit pedestrians. That's how narrow it is. That's how narrow it is. And coming down towards the school, well, we had a young child knocked off her bike the other week. Sorry, not the other week, a couple of months ago, by somebody who decided not to stay and help after they'd hit her and went off. And we also had somebody who was watching traffic for the school, a little traffic lady, on the crossing, and she too was hit, thankfully not seriously injured, by a vehicle. And if you go up into the village, one of the things you find is that we have traffic waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting at crossroads or at traffic lights. And all that waiting produces gas from the car. And that means that our children and young people, particularly those who might have asthma or suffer from bronchitis, will be breathing in contaminated air much more than they should. So round by the school, they're going into school, the air is badly contaminated. And all of this is so easily stoppable. Some years ago, Bernie Fisher and I asked about a TRO when I was first elected. We were told, oh yes, there is one, but it's in a queue. So we asked again some time later, what about the TRO? Oh, it's gone to the back of the queue because it's not that important. This last year, we were told there isn't a TRO. So why the hell have we been told that there is? Because what this place needs is a traffic regulation order that will actually change the way things are for the better for the people. A really simple thing they could do in our area, really, really simple, is coordinate traffic lights. So you could synchronize them. And if you synchronize the traffic lights, you're not going to get huge queues of cars waiting to go through. And actually, they could have gone through, and you could have had a gap when others were going the other way. Simple, so simple. But actually, what we see is things just not being done, not being undertaken, ignored, pushed to the back. No, 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 we can't do that. No, why not? Well, because we can't. What we need is what our people, what our residents need, which is action, thought, planning, and the opportunity to have their say. Now, unfortunately, we can't do that through the county at the moment. That doesn't really happen. You get a tick box, yes, no, fine, maybe, perhaps in the future. What we need is a change. I hope that change will happen in the near future, not the distant future, and we will see a difference then in the way our residents and people indeed across Cheltenham and across the county are treated. Until then, there's only one thing that we can do, and that's what Frank and I decided to do for our residents, to stand up, to be counted, to say to them, you owe this to the people who pay your wages, because the people in Cheltenham pay their wages, to the people who look to you to make the best decisions for them. If you're not making the best decisions, then thank you very much for your time and goodbye, because we need people there who care, who will, who are not afraid to say, yes, we will do this because it's the best thing to do. And if we do that, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, then we will be in a position where we help our residents, help those who need our support, and change things for the better for the future. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Any other member before I ask Councillor Allen? Councillor Allen, you'd like to sum up? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And can I just echo my support for Flo's words there, very eloquently put and too right, shall I say. I also wish to thank members who have spoken today. Too many to name, I actually listed them to say thanks personally, but given the amount of support I've received on council today, I just want to extend my general thanks and to say these are some incredibly good suggestions, some incredibly good points. And I think the aim of this motion in council today has been achieved, which is not only to bring attention to the deficit of road management in Swindon Village and the call for action that is necessary to facilitate our growth as a town, and also to ensure that residents are able to use safe, well-managed and looked after roads. But also it looks like it's inspired other members to bring forward the concerns that they face with roads in their own wards. And I'm proud that this motion has encouraged that from this council today. I'm extraordinarily proud as well to see the cross-cooperation between the two parties. And I'd particularly like to thank Councillor Davies for her email yesterday, in which he suggested an amendment which, while I would agree with it in principle, would be a great sort of stepping stone for a future call to action, which I'd encourage all councillors across this council to work with me on, to include other concerns for road safety across all of Cheltenham. And thank you very much for considering my motion today and for the general expression of support. I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. So if we can move to the votes. That's carried unanimously. I'm not sure if this is a record, but every single vote has been unanimous. So thank you all very much. Item 16, we do have one urgent item to consider, and I'd like to invite Claire Hughes, the monitoring officer, to introduce this item. Thank you, Claire. Oh, there you go.
It's on now. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, so one item of urgent business for members to consider, please. Members may be aware that Section 85 of the Local Government Act 1972 provides that if a member fails to attend meetings of the authority for a period of 6 months, then they cease to become a member of that authority automatically. Unfortunately, due to ill health, Councillor Chandler has been unable to be present at council meetings since the 17th of June. And therefore, because her ill health continues, I'm asking council if they would be prepared to grant dispensation to that 6-month rule for Councillor Chandler to continue for up to a further period for up to 6 months. Obviously, we hope that Councillor Chandler is well before that time and can return back to council meetings, but the request at this stage is for a further period of up to 6 months. I won't say any more on the matter, Mayor, but if anyone's got any specific questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions, members? No. In that case, we'll just move to the
Go straight to the vote.
vote. Okay. Thank you once again, members, very much for your support. It's been an enjoyable meeting. I invite you to stay for a mince pie and a hot drink before you all trip off to the pub, as maybe will be the case, Councillor Lewis. And have a very Merry Christmas. Thank you.